There was this report that came out according to Adri Fernandez, a journalist who works at Barcelona, has claimed that Julián Álvarez is the ideal candidate Barcelona wants next year to replace Lewandowski in their list. He's the main one. This does come after another report that came out back on June 8th that also claimed that Barcelona wants to sign Julián Álvarez next year when Lewandowski departs from the club, with Joan Laporta already internally mentioning his name. So once again, this is not the first time that we have heard Julián Álvarez being linked to FC Barcelona, and we all know and we're very much familiar that Barcelona have always been interested in Julian ever since January 2022. They wanted him back when he was at River Plate, but eventually he went to Manchester City only because there were financial problems. So the interest is very much real. And I really do think that the reason why Julián Álvarez is going to be eyed on going into the next summer of 2026 is because of two reasons. Point number one, we've just talked about how Dani Olmo is going to be our number 9 for the next season with Lewandowski as the backup. For sure, when we go into that next summer, a year later from today, Lewandowski will no longer be a Barcelona player, and now we are for real not going to have another competitor to Dani Olmo, and we do need more competitors. We need more players. We need players to have the healthy competition with one another in every position. Dani Olmo cannot be by himself, and I believe that having somebody like Julián Álvarez enter the squad, compete for that position, which I think that he will, and easily, it's going to be something historic, and it does make a lot of sporting sense. Point number two, Joan Laporta is going to be going for his third term as the president of the club, and he's going to have to win the socios. He's going to have to win the majority of the votes. He wants to be there. He wants to be there for another 7 to 8 years. And one of the ways he's going to try and convince the audience and us and everybody else is to say that, look, we have all of this sporting success. Look at what Hansi Flick has done with FC Barcelona. Look at how many trophies we have won. Now we are 99% done with the operation of Julián Álvarez. We can afford such signings. Barcelona is in the correct financial positions. That is where Joan Laporta wants to go. He wants to say, look at Julián Álvarez, we're 99% done. Look at the Spotify Camp Nou, it's 100% done. We work at 110,000 people capacity within the stadium. We want to get even stronger from here. You look at Lamine Yamal, you look at Pedri, it's going to be a wonderful moment and a critical moment for Joan Laporta. He has a lot of things that could back him up by that time. Julián Álvarez will be seen as the first true marquee signing at Barcelona after so many years. And so because of this, right, I want to have a conversation here. I want to talk about why Julián Álvarez is being eyed on instead of Erling Haaland on number 9. That is truly a monster. I think that we can all agree, right? Haaland is a player that I think Joan Laporta would even want, but why is Julian getting more prominence? And so here's the thing. When Hansi Flick walked through the doors at Barcelona last summer, he kept 2 words on the whiteboard. 2. It is intensity and fluidity. Those are the 2 things that he does want, okay? Intensity and fluidity. Hansi Flick has fused Barcelona's historic love of possession with his own brand of vertical, high-pressing football. The formations that we know he uses is the 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1. His principles is aggressive Jagen pressing, lightning quick transitions, and constant positional rotation. His main imperative is to also say that the striker is the first defender and the central connector. He wants that, and that does align with the recent reports about Dani Olmo going into the number 9 position because he is going to be the central connector. I'm going to go back to this in just a few minutes because Julián Álvarez also does align with this. So whoever leads the line must finish chances and stitch the whole machine together. It's very important. So knowing that context, now let's compare Julián Álvarez to Erling Haaland because these are 2 elite strikers, but 2 very different profiles. And the question is, what aligns with Hansi Flick's football more? So in terms of goals, Julián Álvarez in the 2024-2025 season in all competitions has scored 29. For Erling Haaland, he has 31. Assists, Julian has 7. Erling Haaland has 5. Goals per 90, Julian averages 0.61 while Haaland averages 0.72. Expected goals 15.5 and Erling Haaland 22.1. We have the shot creating actions. Julian has 4.2 while Erling Haaland has 2.8. Pressures per 90, 22.5 for Julian and 14.1 for Erling Haaland. Successful pressures percentage, Julian is 32% and Erling Haaland is 27%. Tackles in the attacking third, Julian has a whopping of 18 while Erling Haaland has 9. Touches per 90 is 45.1 while Erling Haaland has 28.3. Pass completion rate 79% for Julian and 68% for Erling Haaland. I really do think that looking at these numbers, Erling Haaland is the superior finisher, somebody who can score more goals than Julián Álvarez, but Álvarez covers far more of the pitch, and that's very important, my friends. It's very important because we have to understand what is the context of FC Barcelona, hence the reason why I talked about that before the comparisons between Julián Álvarez and Erling Haaland. So let's go to the tactical chemistry test. What is a requirement from Flick in terms of the number 9? Positional versatility. Julián Álvarez can play as a false 9, as a winger, and also as a number 10. Haaland can only give you the number 9 position and nothing more. In the link up play and combinations. Julian Alvarez for sure has that. Erling Haaland does not have that. Relentless pressing triggers. Alvarez has that. Erling Haaland is okay at that, but it could be much more improved. It's very inconsistent. Now we talk about the La Liga adaptation curve. Julian Alvarez will be coming from Atletico Madrid. He has already completed multiple games in La Liga, and for Erling Haaland, none at all. In build-up involvement, as we said before, Julian Alvarez averages 45 touches per 90 minutes, and his pass accuracy is really good, of 79%. With Erling Haaland, very much little involvement, with only 28 touches per 90 minutes, and his pass accuracy is 68%. It's really not that good. Flick's blueprint lives in the gray between positions. Alvarez, who has already been molded by Pep Guardiola's positional play and has been refined under Diego Simeone's pressing instructions in La Liga. This does give Julian a straight transition into Flick's fluid channels. And I think that when you look at Erling Haaland, he's a world-class bull of a striker, but he does ask for the system to bend around him, or else he's just not going to work. Flick measures forwards not only by goals, but how fast they force the next attack. Julian Alvarez clocks 22.5 pressures per 90 minutes. That is the top 10% of La Liga forwards. 78% of his tackles are successful when he gambles high. The fact that he can also have intelligent pressing movements, right, where he presses for the ball and then ghost away from the center backs, it's really good. He can pull center backs away and free up wingers like Lamine Yamal to dart inside. Erling Haaland's pressing numbers have trended up under Guardiola, yes, it's true, but he is a player who remains a sprinter who saves fuel for breakaway burst behind the defensive line. We all know that, but we look at the context of La Liga, the fact that all of these other clubs like to deny space, create these mid to low level blocks. Erling Haaland is going to have such a tough time trying to adapt to that because he needs the space. He can be effective when running behind the defensive line, but there is no space behind the defensive line in La Liga for 90% of the games. So those bursts from Haaland is going to arrive less often, making him very unimpactful. And so look, Barcelona still want the ball, right? Even though I know that Hansi Flick plays high risk, high reward, we still want the majority of the possession. When you see a player like Frenkie de Jong or Pedri trying to go through the opposition's attacking press, trying to get out of deep positions, they want to be able to find a striker who is an option, not somebody who is trying to wait for the ball high up the field and waiting for those long balls behind the defensive line. I believe that Erling Haaland is going to find himself very disattached from this system, while Julian is going to want the ball even more, having no problem trying to drop down and link up play with Pedri or Frenkie de Jong. Hence the reason why, like I've said, why we're hearing that Dani Olmo is going to be our number 9 for the next seasons, because he is a player that is very much comfortable doing these type of instructions. We have heard reports about Flick stating that a player with high pressure, constant movement, competitive character is his ideal candidate, and has privately told Joan Laporta and Deco that he does favor a forward who accelerates collective output over individual stardom. So here's going to be my conclusion. Erling Haaland does guarantee you 30 plus goals per season for sure, because he's a monster, he's a robot, a bull. But Julian Alvarez promises goals plus the connective tissue that turbocharges the entire 11. I can see an attack with Julian Alvarez, Rafinha, Lamine Yamal, and Nico Williams work in a miraculous way, and Flick's Barcelona will continue to sculpt to whatever it does need to be. Hyper athletic, tactically elastic, and defensively proactive. And adding in a player like Julian is the striker who makes the system sing. So let me know in the comment sections down below, who do you believe is the ideal candidate for the number 9 position in the summer of 2026? Would you go for Erling Haaland or Julian? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.